Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to Pariti Digital's live webinar, Enabling Data-Driven Strategy for Sales and Marketing Leaders. We will be discussing today how you can leverage AI with HubSpot to unlock more strategic insights than you ever thought possible. Quick introduction for me. My name's Beth West. I am Pariti's CMO. I've been with the team for about 5 months now. And I'm joining you today from Houston, Texas. I'm very excited to be here. So let's just quickly go over a few housekeeping items, and then I'm going to just cover the agenda really quickly. For starters, this webinar is being recorded, so we will be sure to follow up with the recording link in the next 24 hours. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function and direct your inquiries to the panelists. We will be monitoring that the entire time, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end. And then as far as our agenda goes, we're going to start out with just the welcome that we're doing right now and introductions. Then we will go over to our panel discussion where we'll talk all about AI and HubSpot and all sorts of fun things. And then we will show a demo of how this all works. We'll wrap up with a Q&A, and then we should be done. And hopefully we can finish up a few minutes early and let everybody get back to their day. So yes, let's go ahead and do our introductions now. So for starters, I already introduced myself. I'm Beth West. I've been with Pariti for about 5 months now, like I said, but I'm very excited to introduce two gentlemen who I've had the pleasure of working with over these past 5 months. I've already learned so much from both of them on this topic, and I can't wait for you all to hear what they have to say too. So first off, we have Jeff Mobison, the CEO of Pariti Digital, who is joining us from New York City. Good morning, Jeff, and welcome.
Good morning.
And next we have Diogo Cabral, the Director of Professional Services from Pariti Digital. Diogo is joining us from Lisbon, Portugal. So I guess I should say good afternoon, Diogo.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into our panel discussion. So one thing I appreciate so much about both of you is that when I started working with you, you explained the topic of this webinar to me in such a clear way. I'm definitely not a technical person, and I know there are plenty of sales and marketing leaders who are technical. I just don't happen to be one of those. But you explained it so well, and I'm excited for you to do the same thing for this audience today. So without further ado, let's get going. So Jeff, we've heard a lot about the new Claude and ChatGPT connectors to HubSpot, and we keep hearing about this thing called MCP. Can you help us demystify what all of that is and what all of it means?
I can certainly try. So, so the thing about AI, and I'm old, so I've been around beginning client server. I was here for the internet, and the pace of what's happening with AI is faster than anything I've ever seen, and it's amazing. Now, one of the problems folks have is trying to make sense where we have real business objectives, trying to make sense of not merely what the technologies do, but what the heck are we? What are these things? What do they mean? So when the conversation about how you could use AI specifically with your enterprise systems in a business, when we first started thinking about how to apply an LLM to that private data set that reflects your business operation, you started to hear this thing called MCP. And then you probably all went and searched for it on the internet, and you found it was Model Context Protocol, and you realized that it didn't help you at all. So let me explain what MCP is first, right? This thing that you heard about probably a couple months ago or you're just hearing about now. What MCP, the way to think about MCP is simple. There's this thing we all know of. It's an acronym. Took us a while to understand, called an API. An API is an interface to your production, to your systems, right? That you might use to pull data out of it. Okay. The simplest way to put it is that MCP is the API that a ChatGPT or a Claude or a Google Gemini or any of those AI platforms would use to access your private system, private cloud, hosted, bespoke system. You would have an MCP server that would then allow Claude or ChatGPT to get the data it needs to answer its own questions. So that's what MCP is. What's interesting, though, over the last few months, and this is great, it's where HubSpot's done some awesome work here, is they've looked to simplify kind of that story, because MCP is a little weird. You go search for it on YouTube, you get like 75 different kind of versions of it. And so where it's ended is that there's what HubSpot calls its Claude connector, and that's kind of what you would set up to have your Claude AI. In case you know what Claude is, it's another AI with a large language model, just like ChatGPT or Gemini. And so there's a Claude connector, but there's also what's called a deep research connector for ChatGPT itself. So you can come at it from either one of like the standard LLM platforms and go into your HubSpot system. So that's kind of that is what MCP is. And in a similar fashion, those tools do the same thing. You don't necessarily need them both, but that's kind of what those things mean. Is that fair? Fair answer? All right.
Yes, I think so. That's a great answer. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. Okay, so next question. I think I'm gonna pick on Diogo for this one.
Let's go.
We've we've heard a lot about HubSpot's Breeze AI, which is their AI assistant. Is what we're talking about here Breeze? Is it not Breeze? Like, how does it connect to Breeze? Where does one begin? Where does the other end? Can you help us kind of
Yeah,
understand that, Diogo?
sure. So Breeze, there's two sides to it. Breeze is an assistant that lives inside HubSpot, has access to what you're doing right now. It's inside your workflow. And it's also a number of agents that also begin inside HubSpot. They can see all the content that you have there, and they can be used for a number of things like talking to your clients or generating content or anything in between, I guess. But they are inside HubSpot and they have all that context that comes from your company's data. Whereas with Claude and with other LLMs, we have a broader view. So there are apps in their own standing. They have their own set of features, and they have MCP capabilities. So they can connect to HubSpot the same way that they can connect to a million of other apps out there. And which one to use, I don't think there's a right answer. There are better answers than others. I think the important thing is that you define how your company is going to work with AI. You create processes and the like. And if you're inside your day-to-day workflow, I would definitely go with Breeze inside HubSpot. Don't go anywhere. But if we want to have a broader view, more perspective, deeper analysis, like we're going to see today, I would go with an external source like Claude. I've been doing CRM for a good few years, and I'm kind of old enough to remember when BI tools and implementing BI tools was going to be the thing that was going to
The
give us
answer to
the
everything.
deeper insight. Yeah, and now maybe not.
You're on mute,
Oh,
Beth.
I'm on mute. Of
That's all
course.
right.
Of course. I knew I was going to do that.
Live
Yep.
webinar. That's what
Yep.
happens.
There was without a doubt I was going to do that
We
at some
are
point.
live, in fact. This is live. This is not recorded.
Right. Okay, so this is all really interesting information, but I'm sure maybe the audience is interested in hearing a little bit about what a real world example of how this might work would be. Jeff, could you break
I
that
got
down
one.
for us?
I got one.
Great.
So
Okay.
so so I love Cabral your thoughts on business intelligence, right? It's that the holy grail that leaders, be it CEOs, VPs, all the way down to supervisor team leaders, it's like the holy grail, right? And that is I can maneuver through a set of questions without four data scientists sitting around me to answer questions. And I can do it myself without having to parcel out, analytical kind of jobs to people. And then maybe a month from now or next quarter, I'll get some answers. Okay. Um, so let me give you an example that I use. And this is not a theoretical example. This is literally what I've been doing since the moment, the moment I got an MCP server installed for HubSpot. This is, and this is a long time ago. And a long time ago in AI. We're talking, 3 months ago? This is like the BC of AI 3 months ago. So one of the things that I do as a managing director is one-on-ones with not just my staff, but people in the organization. It's vitally important to me, right? And my objective there isn't really about, well, I just want them to hear me because, well, I usually won't just stop talking about anything. So they're going to hear me whether they like it or not. But as a practical matter, it's my job as a coach to help my people get better. And I could do one of two ways. I could be the 55-year-old guy who has all the answers and has all these great stories to tell that have nothing to do with the work. Or I could really take a look at their world as they're recording it in systems, right? And I could analyze it, and I could do comparatives, and I could use models, like obnoxious models like Michael Porter's 5 Forces framework, right? Or I could apply like elements of a Miller-Hyman sales methodology or whatever, right? But I could apply something that if I said, hey, Mary, what do you think? Here's what you did. Here's what you do well. Here's some opportunities for improvement based on what you're doing and based on your historical performance. Why don't we try these 3 or 4 things as we go into next month, next quarter, next week, these deals. Why don't you give it a shot if you can? My point is I want to be able to help them get better. And so a real world example is I use Claude every week before my one-on-ones with each, and I have one-on-one with each of my salespeople. And I use Claude to help dictate a lot of what I'm giving them. So I do this analysis. I do it quickly. The beauty of it is I do it the day before, right? Or in some cases, the morning before. And I'm able to give them those insights, give them reports, give them data, give them PDFs of their own world. And they're usually, after they're a little unnerved that I have this much analysis about their world. But once they get over that, they've got something actionable. And so that is a real world example in a one-on-one context. And you can imagine how this could beget frameworks of how you deal with your entire team, right? So that's an example, as it turns out, I'm going to demonstrate. I'm actually going to use my production data later on, but that's an example. But you can apply that general approach to any dimension of your business. You could ask it questions about, hey, look, we're positioned this place in the market, but what does our data actually tell us? And I don't mean this in an elementary way. I mean this in the kind of detailed manner that 6 months ago would have taken you weeks, months, quarters, or probably just would have never been possible, given the fact that all of us in this entire webinar we probably don't have time to even be in this webinar. And so this is what it can do. And I'm telling you, when you start to use these LLMs, not Breeze and the LLMs, but when you're using these LLMs, at the end of the day, you're going to be doing things this way in a year. Everyone on this call, everybody, I'm just telling you what's going to happen. In a year and a half, maybe less, you'll be doing this stuff. It's going to play out. So anyway, that's my long-winded answer to examples.
That's amazing. And yeah, you mentioned that to me yesterday too, and I thought that was so powerful. Like in a year, this is what the future is, what we need to be
We're going to be doing it. I'm
embracing at
telling
this
you,
point.
we're going to
Yeah.
be, everyone's going to be doing this. And it's better for people to see these things in action, get a feel for what they can do. And this isn't going to be a webinar where we go into all the approaches and methods to doing it broadly. It's more of a, let's make sure you know what we're talking about when it comes to using these LLMs and what you can do today. Not like in the future, this is a preview. No, this is now, this is a month ago. This is in some cases 2 months ago. Again, eons ago. So you got to pay attention to this. I'll bet you in some of your organizations, a person or two, it may already be doing it. And that's something you got to know. You got to understand this stuff.
Good point. Yeah. Well, okay. So thanks for walking us through that example, Jeff. On the flip side, this is all amazing, but are there any special considerations that a company should maybe have when they're giving that kind of power to their knowledge workers? Are there any gotchas that we should be thinking about?
So I think when you see the demo, it's like, oh, it's amazing. I can't believe the analysis I can do. I can't believe what's possible. And then leaders among us will relax for a second and say, hold on. And they'll think about, and so one of the examples I think about is the world of financial services, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the example I think of there is this is a place where siloing data for analysis of my employees is important, right? I don't want one trader to know what the other trader's book of business is, for example. And so there are security kind of questions. One of the things that you can do with Claude and ChatGPT is if I'm a person in the organization, I want to say, tell me who the best person in the company is at pleasing customers. And tell me, or here's a scary one, who's the worst person? It's going to tell you. And it's going to make a very compelling argument for why they're horrible. And so these, there are cultural kind of elements that are important, right? And beyond the cultural elements, there's a degree of so again, there's the data issue, there's the change management issue. The other thing is everyone can be a data scientist with this LLM, right? It's like, everyone's going to come to the ball game with a lot of power, and everyone's going to believe they have the right answers. And one of the questions you got to ask yourself is, are they all looking at this the way we as an organization want? So organizations have principles, about what matters. And you got to be able to have those principles applied when you're using something as powerful as this. Otherwise, there are pitfalls. You want creativity, but you also want a degree of consistency. So when you put this power in the hands of people, there's a huge change management challenge and a huge analysis paralysis kind of risk that is created. And there's a huge how good is my CRM? Like, how real is the CRM in the context of actually an accurate depiction of what's happening? What about people that go this deep with their discipline in the CRM versus that deep, not so deep? What are the results I'm going to get? And then the last piece I'll say is, and what about answers that the CRM really isn't positioned to tell me about? Like, for example, let's say you have a provisioning system, right? And you have a lot of really important information there. You're getting half the answer, a very powerful answer backed up by a lot of great data and reports that's ignoring this critical system. So you got to think about all these things when you start to kind of get a sense as to how much power the individual has. And it's a good thing. Agency's good. But, with controls, right? So there are plenty of pitfalls that come with huge amounts of analytic power. Everyone's got a personal data scientist.
It's a little scary when you think about it, but
awesome,
exciting.
Awesome.
Yes.
But like anything like this, if you don't think it through, you're going to have a free for all of analysis, and everyone's going to be right, and no one will be wrong.
Okay, well, and thank you, Jeff. In our last couple of minutes for this panel discussion, I do want to just shift a little bit to a different topic. If Diogo, maybe you can help us with this one. If the LLM or AI does all of these amazing things that we're hearing about, then what exactly does the CRM do? What's left for the CRM to do?
I
That's what
think
Wall Street
what's
wants to
left,
know. That's what Wall Street wants to know today.
Right.
what's left is for the CRM to enable it, really. Because if
Okay.
you don't have any structure, if you don't have any data, if all you have is a bunch of emails and a couple of spreadsheets, then the energy and of the LLM, of Claude or ChatGPT, or your energy for that matter, is going to be spent on trying to infer any structure from that data, from that chaos. Whereas if you have information in your CRM, and we'll see what Jeff does with the information that we religiously put into HubSpot every day, then Claude understands the structure. Claude understands the process, and you in your prompts you can guide it to much deeper discussions. You can brainstorm with it. You can really take it to the next level. Whereas if you don't have a proper CRM, if you don't use your CRM, then you're just gonna spend all your time trying to have one in Claude. What do
Let
you
me let
think,
me
Jeff?
add let me add something to that, Cabral. So it's language. So it's language and breadth is what a CRM provides you with. So one of the implications of what AI, large language models, can do with a CRM is one of the first things it tells you is some of the implementation decisions that you make about what you want to implement in the CRM. You might look at them differently. I know I do. I know when we eat our own dog food, so we live and die by HubSpot itself internally. And I remember as we were thinking about our own implementation, they're kind of like firewalls and stuff. Like let's not have every email in there. Okay, let's not do that. It's like, well, don't we want to integrate it with our timesheet system because we're a consulting firm? Like, well, let's not do that. We don't need all the data in there that way. Well, now I'm thinking, man, we really need to expand everything. It's like, we have a ticketing system, and thank goodness it's based on Service Hub, but for support requests, for example. But that wasn't a foregone conclusion when we're thinking about it. Maybe we need something more, a little deeper. And now it's like, no, what you want is an integrated picture of all these things. Because the more integrated the picture is, the more accurate the answers for the LLM. I mean, the risk with an LLM is it's going to give you its best guess and it will be the best guess based on the data it's looking at. But if your data's wrong, and then you have one of two options. You can either take the answers and probably make some bad decisions on it, or you can spend a lot of time teaching the LLM what it's seeing. So, for example, if you got 17 different pipelines and none of them match up and you can't do a unified forecast, well, ChatGPT or Claude's going to try and figure it out for you if you ask it a forecast question, right? And it's going to use its own best methods. And the question is, can you, in fact, you know, wouldn't it be better for you to establish kind of a method and a process internally, and then let ChatGPT take a stab at it, or do you want it to set up an MCP server to go somewhere else and connect customer data from here to there and do its best guess that I mean, what you don't want is to have a customer IBM in Los Angeles and a customer IBM in Mongolia, and you're asking questions about how IBM works, and Claude's giving you a great answer about how the Mongolian market kind of operates, when really you're asking about LA. That'll happen if you don't
Sure.
think about your implementation. If you don't have a reasonably consolidated and concise, well thought through CRM implementation, doesn't mean you can't. In some ways, the large language model can help you get there, but these are the kinds of risks that you run.
Okay. And so interesting. And as long as we're kind of on the topic of bringing in other data, and I think we'll answer this fairly quickly because we want to stay on track, and we have a really exciting demo to share with the audience. But
Give it to me then.
David Cabral, oh, stop it, man. Come on,
Sorry.
we're
you're
aiming for
killing me.
brevity here, so we'll give it to Diogo. So what about the rest of the data that isn't in the CRM? So in most companies, they have details in their ERP, in their accounting platforms, or their e-commerce site, that might be really useful to pull in.
Hmm.
Diogo,
Yeah.
we've heard a lot like, aren't email and Slack the most reliable places for getting answers these days? Like, what, how do we manage all of that?
Yeah, I think every industry has their own set of tools that are very specific. Jeff mentioned timesheet data, provisioning systems, etc. And all of that stuff that's typically not in CRM, at least in all its glory, but it is key, right? We cannot look at the business holistically without taking those things, those elements into consideration. So, what do? You have two possible approaches, one of them being integration. So bringing the data into CRM and querying it from there. This is also useful for, marketing, sales, service users to use in their day-to-day lives. And typically you bring a subset of the data, summary, just enough for people to do their jobs, but not everything. And then you can just connect Claude via MCP to these other apps. And this sounds simple, but it's not just a technical connection. You do need to put some thought into it, and you do need to build the correct MCP server because, like Jeff said, we're going to be arming this model with a lot of information. And if it fails, it's going to fail in a very convincing way. So we want to make sure that it gets what it's saying, why it's saying it, and that it's not talking about, Mongolia or
Hey, Mongolia is relevant. It's
That's
just
a good
it is.
not
example.
what you're thinking
Yeah.
about LA.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you both so much. I found all of that. I just find all of this so interesting. So I really enjoyed that. I hope the audience did too. And I think we're a few minutes behind, but that's okay. We're just so passionate about this topic. We just want to keep talking about it. But why don't we go ahead at this point and switch over to our demo and just sort of show the audience what all of this looks like in action. So Jeff,
Okay,
take it
so
away.
absolutely. So let's actually think about what look at a true scenario. A large language model in action with HubSpot data, and I'm using Claude. Um, and I want people to what you're going to see here, and this is just again Claude desktop connected with the Claude connector. There are no hanging strings. There is no super tight integration, but to understand what we're all talking about here. I mean, you want to look at a scenario, and you really want to just imagine having a conversation with a data scientist that's got incredibly deep understanding of your systems and incredibly deep and a lot of utility and resources, right? So think about having that person right next to you as you ask. So what might I ask relative to the example that I gave before? So I want to give an example of looking at kind of my sales universe and think about the questions that I might ask of my system relative to my sales team, my sales people, how well they're executing. So let's do this. So I'm looking at my data, real data. So let me first of all ask a simple question. Let's look at a month. So give me a breakdown of my deals in June 2025. So this is real data. I'm going to anonymize things. It's one of the cool things that I can do. And I'm going to give it I'm going to also show an example of how I have to kind of teach the LLM as I go, right? So one of the things about an LLM is it gets smarter the more you help it. So one of the things I know is that when you reach out to HubSpot, and there are elements that are a little tricky. So I have this element that I pasted just because I know, and I'll do it once, right? Because because Cabral has told me that I want, if I look at these IDs, this is one of the ways I can help the LLM figure out who I'm asking about. I also know the API for HubSpot will give me 100 records at a time, and it'll give me a wrong answer if I don't tell it, hey, don't just look at the first 100. So I'll talk about it just like a person, almost no different than I would, if I had someone that was going off to do this analysis. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. I've told it, I'm going to look at the first 100. And so let me anonymize this. So we're going to have fun. So we're going to basically use, in any of the data that comes back, we're going to use bond girls, bond villains, or enterprises. If any customers are mentioned, we're going to use fake Star Wars theme companies that protect the innocent. And I wanted to give you a comparison of the top 5 people in my organization from a sales perspective. So this is a big, broad question. And now you start to see what the AI is doing. It's talking to you like a person. It's saying, hey, I'll help analyze the deals. It's telling you what it's doing, how it's going about doing the analysis. And this is important because you want to know that, it's attacking things in the right way. So it's walking through every step. It's telling me it's fetching the data. It's analyzing the deals. It's got the data, and it's about to do its breakdown. And again, it sometimes takes a little time, and I'm going to hide all this technical stuff that it's giving us. It's orchestrating these themes. But by giving this to me, it's this data along the way, it's giving me a breakdown of how it's approaching getting the answers. It's so important. So here's what it's got. So this is what it's returning. It's looked at June, and it's told me about the people and what they've done. And it's telling me that I've got Vesper Linden, if you know Bond, you know who these people are. Xenia, these names are not mine. These are the names that Bond is coming back with. But it's giving me a report, an analysis on exactly what has happened in that month. And it's giving me commentary. It's giving me key insights, total pipeline, who's dominating from a pipeline value perspective, who's doing the biggest deals. And I want you to understand, I've not given it anything, right? So it's giving me all this drill down information, and I haven't given it really anything to really work with other than break it all down for me. This is important. This kind of opens up the idea that, one, it provides tremendous power, but at the same time, boy, is it compelling, right? So if your data is a little goofed up, you're going to get compelling answers on the wrong data. This is why, your discipline is important. Now, one of the things you might ask is, well, couldn't I just get this information for the most part from HubSpot? Could I just run a static report on my deals and get this? And the answer is yes, but that's never where we want to end. We always run a report because we have something else in mind, and I want to go a little deeper. So let's do this. The 2 best people here were Vesper and Xenia, right? You see them here. So let's do this. Let's compare my top 2 creators of pipeline and ask Claude, how are they different, and why are they different from your perspective? In fact, tell me who is better. So this is that example of tell me from your perspective who's better. And this is what it does. It breaks down my top 2 people, and it says, well, Vesper casts a very wide net, closes what sticks. They're the volume hunter. It tells me all this wonderful information about how she opens up all sorts of opportunities for us. But Xenia is all about quality over quantity. So it does this contrast. It says one does a lot more, the other has a much larger average deal size. It breaks down a whole host of metrics around conversion, win rates, deals won, lost, open deals. It gives me the revenue impact. And then it tells me about their distribution. So think about this. I just asked a basic question, and it tells me how they're different. What is Vesper's approach based on what you've seen in that data? What are the operations? What is the financial impact of these folks doing things? And what is your opinion about who is better? Well, it tells me on the bottom left here, Xenia is better, okay? But it also says Vesper is better if I need to build pipeline quick, if my market strategy provides broad coverage. So it's giving me these contrasts. This is right out of the box. What if I provided a framework to ask, to say, hey, look, we have a sales methodology. Can you give me your point of view from our sales methodology perspective? Because I'm trying to further that methodology. So I can apply that here. I could literally tell the LLM, look, let's go ahead and apply kind of a terminology we use here at Pariti Digital, doing that. But these are the kind of things we could get out of this. So look at this detail. I just stare at this for just a moment, But so what am I thinking about here when I look at this? Well, Xenia is the best at creating answers, but Vesper, as you see at the bottom here, they're a valuable pipeline generator. So I kind of don't want to mess around with Xenia too much based on all this information. How would I approach, getting Xenia better at this? And that's really where I want to go. I want to think carefully about Vesper. Vesper drives volume. So my next thought process as a leader of sales, as a managing director, is actually to look at Vesper. And let's take a look at Vesper's close rate. Let's look and see, are there, if Xenia was so much better, let's see if there are any interesting patterns of activities for Vesper's won deals. And let's, again, because we're on a live webinar, let's anonymize the company names, and we'll use Star Wars themes, just to protect the innocent here. So off we go. So we're going to have it go do this analysis. It's doing it, and it's telling us, I love this. I love how it tells you what it's doing and how it's approaching it. It's saying, I'm going to use the Star Wars. So here's what we got. So we're looking at Vesper now, just Vesper. And now it's telling us, okay, so Vesper's got a close rate of 22.6%. That's interesting. It tells us what we're winning, what we're losing, or what Vesper's lost. And if any Star Wars fans out there, we lost Naboo, we lost Yavin, we lost Coruscant, we lost Alderaan, which is a real problem. That is a real problem, especially since they're all high-value deals. But this is the beauty. It tells me things about Vesper that I would have otherwise taken me forever. There are some patterns in how Vesper wins. 86% of their wins in 1 week. Why? Well, they have better qualification. Their characteristics of those customers, maybe less end-of-month pressure. They're not pushing. The prospects are more engaged. This is the first run of the feedback from your large language model. It gives me patterns. It tells me, hey, look, just sifting through this. It also tells me approaches that I can take. But one of the things I really like are the red flags. Okay, the red flags are really powerful here. So, 20 cases, they're tough. They have a hard time closing bigger deals. They have a hard time with RFPs. They have comeback deals that don't come back, and the generic project label. There are indicators that tell me, why we lose, but indicators that tell me where Vesper wins. Migrations, integrations. So think about this, right? It's now giving me also recommendations. Stop the bleeding. What should we not be doing? And the RFPs without an existing relationship. Let's double down on winners. And it's telling me what the bottom line is and how. And so this is an example of what I would go to a one-on-one with Vesper. And in fact, I will tell you, I did, right? So just, I can't tell you much more. You can just start to imagine, what you can do from a one-on-one perspective in terms of making people better. But what if I wanted to apply a hunch that I have? So I have one of the things we actually do here internally is there are unique features of our system, and we work on our deals, as most of you know on this call. We work very closely with HubSpot, right? And we have a field we use in there to actually indicate who we're working with at HubSpot. Okay, so why does this matter? Because I want to get a sense as to what are the combinations of my team and their team that seem to win. So let's go ahead and look at that. Let's knowing that June is 1 month is not good enough. Let's look at an entire large data set, June to September of 2025, and give me a report on the close one, the pipeline expected value by our partner. So I'm looking outside the organization, and I'm going to ask it to go and do some analysis. So it's thinking about the sales pipeline. It's looking at all the data from that period of time. And again, this is one conversation. So it's fetching data. This is the power of a large language model in action. It's got all the deals, and now it's going to create this report with anonymized AE names, and it's going to use Marvel characters. I know this is going to be something fun to look at, and you think that these are real people that we work with at HubSpot, and they are all Marvel characters. They are our superheroes. These are our partners that we work with at HubSpot. And there's my little political advertisement for the day from my friends at HubSpot. So as it's coming up with this, this is, these are examples of as it's doing this. This could be sensitive, right? So and this is where you got to think through the considerations of what the data might tell you, right? You have friends of the business, but let's see what Claude's going to come back with, and let's give it a little bit of time to chunk through this. It's working. It's thinking. And there we go. Okay. So over this period of time, it analyzed almost 300 deals. It tells us Wonder Woman is our best partner over there. So it's giving me some, and here's the beauty of it. It's giving me now actionable recommendations, not as it relates to my team, but as it relates to the team that we're partnered with. So this is an example of where you are being comprehensive in collecting your information in your CRM. Boy, you can really get some powerful answers from this. And so, this, I want to stop for just a split second here, right? And actually wax on this before I end this demo. But what just happened? So I started by just asking about all the deals in a month. Just give me a summary. I went down and I said, now break it down for my best performers. Okay, I've got 2 performers. It said, these 2 are great, but they're very different in this way. Okay, so who's better? Well, this person's better. But what about the other person? Well, the other person, can we analyze that person to see what's going on? If they're not the best, but they're driving 4 times as much pipeline, what can we do to make that person? So we did that, and it gave us recommendations. It broke it all down. And then I said, okay, great, that's good for my one-on-one. But I'm actually curious, how well are we working with our partners over this period of time? And I want to know, because this is another element I might bring to my team, saying, hey, we're really good. Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Batman, and Iron Man over at HubSpot are tremendous. And here they're tremendous in different ways. So maybe we should double down on those partnerships. Maybe we should be more active in trying to provide help. And so this is, how do I put this? And I get excited and I start getting hyperbolic when it comes to this stuff here. But let me pivot to, okay, so this is our great answers. What might I also do? Okay, so I have this report. What do I do with it? Well, if I have an MCP server that connects to Gmail, I could tell it to send an email with this information. I could also have, if I expand my MCP server for HubSpot, I could say, you know what? Based on this, I want every one of my salespeople to reach out to Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Batman, and Iron Man. Just tell them how happy we are to work with them, and is there anything we can do? So I could literally create tasks in HubSpot simply by saying it in Claude or ChatGPT. I could literally type it right here and say, add a task to talk to these people, send this report, and explain why, and give it 1 week and report back to me if they haven't done it. I could do that in Claude. I could do it right here. And so you can close the loop. I could ask questions about other systems. If I have MCP servers, I could say, does this view of the world jibe with kind of how we're doing on projects, right? Tell me about the satisfaction levels of the deals that we work on that come from Wonder Woman and Iron Man. It's this, I'll just say flat out, this makes me better. As a managing director, this makes me better. And it's incredibly exciting. So I'm going to stop. My point here was to show a large language model working with HubSpot without any strings attached and with a very simple set of prompts. That's all I did here. You can do so much more than this. This is what I call kindergarten primary one type analysis with your large language model. And anyone that's got HubSpot today, anyone on this call can do exactly what I did. There's nothing unique about what I did. There's nothing innovative about what I did, but this is what you can do. So I'll stop there because my excitement makes me just keep talking. So I'll stop at that
It's
point.
contagious, Jeff. It's very exciting. Thank you so much for walking through that. It's really, again, very powerful stuff. And we do have some questions in the chat that I'd love to get to over the next few minutes. So thanks everybody for participating. The first is from Michael March, who I actually know. Shout out. Hi, Mike. What's the difference in quality that you've seen when having Claude's MCP respond to a prompt and then you feed the same prompt to ChatGPT's HubSpot integration?
Such a good question.
Also the difference used within the different model within each LLM vendor. Who wants to take that one on?
All right. So this is where I usually say, that's such a great question. Cabral, what do you think? So it's like, but let me, because I got some firsthand with it. So here's the thing about these tools, right? It's not about best. It's about how they talk. And it's strange. So first of all, let's do a Claude versus ChatGPT first, just for a moment, right? Again, I don't think either one is better. So Claude versus ChatGPT's deep research connector. I don't think either one is better per se. There are considerations that are pragmatic. HubSpot spent a little bit more time in the beginning with Claude, is my sense. But make no mistake, ChatGPT is the 800-pound gorilla in the AI world. And I have no doubt that HubSpot and OpenAI that gap will close. That will not be, it'll be like a browser type gap at some point. What I will say is that I view those two systems as both being, for lack of a better term, Western civilizations that speak different languages, where, ChatGPT speaks German and Claude speaks Spanish. I'm sorry, Cabral's Portuguese. Claude speaks Portuguese. So those would be examples. You happy, Cabral? Yeah, I know. So
yeah,
I know you are. So those are it's the best way I could put it. You asked me like, well, you showed Claude, so does that tell me something about ChatGPT? Well, it tells you I've been on Claude a lot more, and I know I've spent a lot more time kind of coaching Claude. I know what Claude's responses are. What I will say is this: at this point, I think where you start is where you probably should stay. Because you'll get a feel for its interface. They kind of return different grain of, you saw with Claude, it returns you some very interesting, deep grain on things. So does the deep research connector, but they do it in different ways. And you as a human get better at engaging with it based on your immersion with it, just like a language. It's the best way I can put it, but I'll say they're both fantastic. And then the other thing is you're actually about the actual models underneath. That is such a great question. And by the way, is super relevant, super relevant. So I know, let me make sure I get this right. We're doing, like with Claude, we use Sonnet 4.5. Am I right, Cabral? Super Genius?
Yeah. Claude, the
Yeah.
latest one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, and I should know that. It's right in front of me here. And what I have experimented with flipping it to other models, and it doesn't come back in the same way. And let me tell you something else, right? I know some tips and tricks about using these tools. I know Claude. If you've ever really used AI, you know it. You get to message limits and conversation limits and stuff like that. You need to understand those things, right? Because you'll be working on the analysis and all of a sudden it'll blow up on you because you've blown through a conversation. There are also metaphors that are important in the AI tools, like Claude has projects. That's where I should be doing all these prompts. I should be using the projects area where and the notion of a project, and I don't want to get into an AI discussion, Claude presentation, but a project lets you continue to build knowledge over time. I do it today, I do it next week, I do it a week after, and you keep building artifacts that you don't have to reteach the large language model. So I kind of gave you a political answer. I'm a huge fan of Claude, but I know ChatGPT is going to catch up. Cabral, do you have anything to add to that? That's a long answer.
I normally try the same prompt on both and kind of pit them against each other. What about this? What about that style? I find that when you do brainstorm with them and, bounce ideas off, that's when you really get interesting stuff rather than ask something, just pick it up and go away. So yeah, I don't see a significant difference in quality. They typically have different approaches, which I think are normally both kind of good first steps.
But if I had to, hold on, if I had to grab you by the throat, Cabral, since I don't want to be committing anything, but I'm going to make you. If you had to pick one today, right now, for Parade, you had to say we're doing X or we're doing Y. Which would you pick? Just say it.
Such an
today, Claude. But
yes, okay, that's it.
Tomorrow,
that's all I wanted to hear. That gives a definitive answer to the question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Today pick Claude. Yeah.
So really quickly, I think we maybe have time for one more quick question, as long as we can answer it briefly. But it's something that I saw many people write in about in the chat. It's basically the security risks that might be involved. I think it's a really important topic that we discuss in the next minute or two. So Kieran wrote in and said, what's the general sentiment you're seeing from clients? Are they finding that the productivity benefits of the Claude ChatGPT connectors outweigh the perceived data privacy risks, or is there still significant hesitation in adopting them with sensitive CRM data?
20-second answer is this. Because leaders need the purview of all the data, the risks to leaders, so if you are head of marketing or head of sales or an organizational leader where it's important for you to see the whole field, I think the considerations are marginal. And then the security answer is really twofold. Like, is it secure from external sources? The answer is yes, because ultimately it's actually working through HubSpot's security apparatus to look at that data, and it won't share that data with the world. Okay, that's the point of MCP actually. The bigger issue is actually thinking about the access to data internally. That's what I think is the much more consequential topic as it stands today. So I'll stop there. Cabral, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think right now when you connect Claude to HubSpot, it already restricts you to the data that you can see as a as a normal user. HubSpot itself on the AI front does not retain the data that it picks. It doesn't use your data to train models. So, I mean, there's always a risk in these things, and not just with AI, but I think the adequate steps have been taken to make things go smoothly.
Okay, well,
Can
thank
we do
you
one more
so
question?
much.
Can we do one more
Oh,
question? Come on, let's just do
okay,
it.
but we're already past
We'll
time,
be
but
okay.
okay.
We can leave our sales pitch and tighten that up. Let's just get one more question.
Okay. Let's see. Um, are you all looking in the chat? There's a couple others that we could do.
Just pick one randomly.
Chloe wrote in and said that that's my biggest concern as well, HubSpot data leaving the CRM and then that knowledge being available to competitors. And then Mike said, my question as it applies to this demo, do you ever switch to the Opus model? And do you see a difference in quality in the response?
The answer is I do. So yeah.
Okay.
So the answer is yes, and I do, and I use Sonnet 4.5. And Opus just seems to struggle a little bit more. Opus tends to give me more vague answers that are a little more. I want more data. I want points. Um, you know, Cabral has spent a lot of time breaking down all of the specific models and kind of how they're different. So I think in a discovery, he could tell you those things. I'm just a useless managing director, right? But he knows what he's talking about. But taking his counsel, I've stayed with Sonnet 4.5 and have actually noticed that the other models and even older models of Sonnet, like when Sonnet 4 and 4.5 were available, 4.5 just instantly was better. So I believe that's good news for us. It means the newer models get better at doing the kind of work that we need. But we can help with those. This is what we do at Parade. It's our job to know the answers to these questions. So so talk to that
Which
other guy on the screen.
leads me to our segue to our next slide, where we will talk about
The sales
our
pitch.
free 30-minute HubSpot discovery session. So Jeff, why don't you take this and
All
talk
right,
about
all
it in
right,
30
all right.
seconds or less.
So it wouldn't be a webinar if I didn't, say, hey, look, what can we do for you? So if nothing else, we're pretty passionate about this stuff. Number one. Number two is when it comes to HubSpot, we use it religiously internally. That is not. I mean, there are people in my back office today that I think would make for some of the best HubSpot consultants, right? Um, and we've been using these tools from the moment they came out, and so there's a lot to chew on. And in my career, half of my career I've been selling services to clients. The other half I've been purchasing services. So I know what it means to be a buyer of this stuff. So what would I want? What I would want is someone to talk to me for 30 minutes and frankly listen to what I'm thinking about AI. So what we've done is we've created a discovery session. We also have an AI assessment on our website, but what this is for anyone that's here on the webinar, please schedule a 30-minute session. It's a HubSpot and LLM focused. Breeze has got a home. We can talk about that. But for this, we want to talk about your use of ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini with HubSpot and help you think about it. Frame how you would tackle it. Frame how you would not think about even the problem, but how would you approach an AI initiative with HubSpot and your organization internally? Part of it is maybe educating you on what you can do with it, right? Kind of like the demo, maybe even doing a pilot to show so that you have the power that you saw when I was showing it to you and coaching you through that, setting some things up for you. But the other part is taking a step back once you've built that knowledge and saying, okay, now how do we think about an implementation and where should we start? This
Great.
we can help you with. And the last thing is, every organization is thinking about AI, and so some of you have frameworks that you're already, considerations, and it's a part of our job might be to how do we think about a HubSpot implementation in the context of this larger corporate initiative to tackle AI. But I can tell you what, you can get going fast here.
Yes.
I mean,
And we
today.
did drop the link in the chat for you if that helps, instead of having to type it all out. We do just have one more quick sales pitch.
Oh,
And that
yes.
is that we are having an in-person event in Dublin, Ireland. So if
Come to
anyone is
Dublin.
in the
Come to
Dublin
Dublin. We'll
area,
be
come
there.
to Dublin, come hang out with us. The event is centered around this topic that we've talked about today. We're calling it AI powered growth, redefining sales and marketing success in HubSpot. We'll have lots of fantastic things that are happening at the event. We'll have a panel discussion, much like this, where we talk about HubSpot. We talk with HubSpot and AI experts. We'll have a customer success story, have a customer coming to tell about his experience with HubSpot. And then there's plenty of food and drinks too, and networking, and it should be a really fun time. So definitely click on the link in the chat if you're interested, and we would love to see you there. And we are so sorry that we did not keep to our promise of letting you go a few minutes early. But as you can see, we're just very passionate about this topic and love to talk about it. So thank you all so much. It
One
was a
more note.
pleasure
This will
having
we're
you
gonna
here
get this on.
today.
We're gonna get this on YouTube. So this will be on YouTube. Just
Yes,
search for
yes,
Parade
we will
Digital,
have
HubSpot, and AI. You'll be able to find it out
all
there
of that.
within a day.
And for those of you whose questions we didn't get a chance to answer, we will definitely do that in the form of a blog or a personal email or something. We will make sure that we follow up on that. So thank you again. And we hope you all have a wonderful day.